Welcome to the weekly Lawrence City Commission meeting. I hope everybody's enjoyed the last couple of weeks and since we've been here last. I did want to take a moment to recognize a special person that is with us this evening. I want to recognize Chad Lawhorn from the Lawrence Journal-World. I want to welcome him home as he was our beat reporter for a long time. So anyway, Chad, good to see you again. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and all matters listed on the consent agenda are to be considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Are there any items on the consent agenda that a member of the commission would like to have removed for separate consideration? Okay. Any items on the consent agenda that a member of the public would like to have removed for separate consideration? Yes, sir.
I'd like to remove item number 8.
Item 8?
Please.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Item number 7A.
Okay. Any other items on the consent agenda that a member of the public would like to have removed for separate consideration? Okay, hearing none. So with the exceptions of items number 7A and item number 8, we need to add claims to the consent agenda in the amount, claims for 277 vendors in the amount of $3,976,563.68. Payroll-related items in the amount of $3,183,944 for a grand total of all claims of $7,756,081.67. So again, with the exception of item 7A and item number 8 and the addition of claims, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion made and second to approve the consent agenda made by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Larson. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. Item 7A is to adopt on second and final reading ordinance number 9252, enacting amendments to the City of Lawrence Building Code to require submittal of stormwater grading and drainage plans for residential building construction projects on RS5 and RS3 zone classified as Zone X, protected by the levy on the city's flood insurance rate map. Ted, you had a question?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Ted Boyle, President of North Lawrence Improvement, and I'd just like to make a comment on Ordinance 9252. We in North Lawrence believe that this is a step in the right direction to control the stormwater problem that we have in North Lawrence, and along with the $6+ million pump that's going to be completed this month. We believe if we keep going in this direction, that we can alleviate the stormwater problems that we have in North Lawrence. And I'd just like to thank city staff for working with North Lawrence on this project, and that'd be Planning Director Scott McCullough and also Stormwater Engineer Matt Bond. So we really appreciate what's being done. And I think, you know, that maybe when this pump gets in operation by the end of the month, they tell me, that we just might have a big celebration. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Is there any other public comment on this item? Okay. Hearing none, back to the commission. Any questions or comments?
It's a good legacy to leave behind.
It is. I think, yeah, this is a good job by all of our staff and the work of the Planning Commission also to make sure that, and people in North Lawrence have been involved with it a long time. And so after the pump starts, are we changing the name of North Lawrence to the Little Sahara over there? It's going to be that dry, right? Okay, back to the item at hand. So I would entertain a motion then, if there's nothing else, to adopt on second and final reading ordinance number 9252.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second for adoption on second and final reading, ordinance number 9252, made by Commissioner Herbert, second by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0. Item number 8 is to receive a letter from the Lawrence Douglas County Bicycle Advisory Committee regarding the Kansas Department of Transportation report on alternatives for the East 1200 Road and Castle Drive and K10 intersection. David?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm David Hamby. I'm a member of the Lawrence Douglas County Bicycle Advisory Committee, but I'm kind of setting that aside and just being here as a resident. I wanted to thank you for looking at this item. We prepared this letter with the concerns of what KDOT is planning to do there at the intersection of the SLT and Castle or E1200 Road. As you know, in June, KDOT proposed their improvements, and they're working on construction plans to make that a right-in, right-out at that intersection. But they did not take into account any movements or the bicycle movements through that intersection. And so that's the reason the Lawrence Douglas County Bicycle Advisory Commission put together this letter. And you may all know that that route, that crossing, is highly used by cyclists to access routes south of town, the Lone Star route down 59. And so when that's closed, the only option would be either Wakarusa or US 59. And so when this is closed, you're going to see a lot more cyclists on US 59 highway trying to get south of the SLT. So what I wanted to do is ask that you work with the county and KDOT to come up with some provision there that makes sense. When KDOT presented this to you, they presented with option 3 that path could be built underneath the Yankee Tank Bridge to the east there, and that could provide an underpass essentially for cyclists in that intersection. And I'd ask that you work with KDOT and the county to get that accomplished. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You've had initial discussion with the county, I assume? You've had discussion with the county?
The same letter's on the county's agenda for tomorrow, and I will be there as well. And that's the same letter from the Bicycle Advisory Commission's on that as well.
Okay. Okay.
And I know there's other people, I think, that want to comment as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Any other questions, David? Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
David. Other comment on this?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. Chris Tilden. I live at 1121 Williamsburg Court. I am not a member of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Just wanted to note that, you know, I imagine hundreds of bicyclists pass through that intersection, you know, on a weekly basis on Saturday alone. I normally pass through there and see dozens, if not hundreds, of cyclists. I think looking at a solution, if there's funding through KDOT to address that bicycling concern, would be extremely helpful and create much safer conditions for cyclists along that roadway.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else to speak to this item? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Kerry Wolfington, and I'm a member of the Lawrence Bike Club. I'm not a member of the council, but I'd like to also support this move to try to get the bicyclists off of the road and to not be forced to cross the road, to cross the South Lawrence Traffic Way. It's hard to make a judgment when you're on a bicycle how fast traffic moves when they're driving 65, 70 mile an hour. And on the other hand, it's hard for traffic and cars to make a judgment how slow bicyclists are as they cross. So anything that would get us, I say we being bicyclists, off of the road would be appreciated and probably would be advisable. So
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Okay, back to the commission. So if I understand this right, this is a simple letter asking us to work with the county and KDOT about the possibilities of coming up with an alternative to an at-grade crossing for a bicycle.
That's the way I interpret it.
Okay, and I would definitely encourage, as you talk to everybody that uses that at grade, don't do it. I mean, that traffic's going to fly through there. And you're absolutely right. There is no way to judge, anybody's going to be able to judge that. And that's one of the reasons, that it came forward, then it was looked at originally to shut it down so that somebody wouldn't get hurt or killed there. So, I guess at this point, yeah, if there's alternatives that can be considered, I think that's fine. We can definitely meet with our county counterparts and with KDOT if they so choose and see if there's funding that may be available to do it. I know it's probably not the time for us to be looking on budget night, but I do think it's something that we can probably look into. Okay? Fair enough. Anyone else?
So is the action to receive the letter or
Yeah,
refer it to staff?
The action is to receive the letter, and then I assume that, Tom, you'll make the necessary contacts with Craig.
Yes, and we'll talk to the state as well. I think that it's probably one of those projects that needs to be scheduled in a future CIP discussion for both the staff and the city commission in terms of, what the cost sharing could be. They talked about a specific project that I think would relieve this kind of safety issue, and I think that's something initially we want to pursue, and if there's other alternatives. But I think it involves both the county and the state in terms of the conversation, so we'll pursue it that way.
Okay.
So you can both receive and refer if you choose to.
Okay, let's do that then. I would entertain a motion that we receive the letter from the Lawrence Douglas County Bicycle Advisory Committee, and we refer it to staff for further investigation with the county and KDOT.
So moved.
Motion made and second to receive and to refer to staff, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Larson. Any other questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Okay, next item on the agenda is general public comment, and the public is allowed to speak on any issues that are not scheduled on the agenda this evening after first being recognized by the mayor. As a general practice, the commission will not discuss or debate any of these items, nor will the commission make decisions on items presented during this time, but rather they will refer the items to staff for follow-up and if necessary, and then individuals are asked to come to the microphone, sign in, and state their name and address, and speakers should address all comments and questions to the commission. So is there any general public comment of items that are not on the agenda this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Hello,
Hello.
Crystal Lee Prothero. Crystal Lee Prothero.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening. I have come to certain members before. I have some very personal concerns that I would like to bring to our committee and our city and discuss what could be done to better prevent these types of issues occurring. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and when I reported abuse, I was punished through the legal system. And I'm highly concerned that at a social responsibility level, our city can do a better job. I have started to create a program that will assist victims of domestic violence when seeking assistance through local court systems and other avenues. I would like to present that. I don't have that with me tonight, but I would like to present that to the commission and open a discussion on what our community can do in order to have a better response, better treatment. I know there's been some issues with KU not properly handling rape issues. That's also intertwined with our police department. I also have experience with that as well. I think and feel things could be handled in a better fashion. Again, my name is Crystal Lee Prothero. I know individuals of the city commission and people that are in charge have my information already. So any follow-up information that you would need from me would be easily accessible. I hope to hear from someone after this. I know we can't comment on this at that time, but this is hopefully something that will continue to move forward in a positive fashion for our city.
Okay.
Crystal,
Yes,
I'm a
ma'am.
member of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council,
Yes.
which is chaired by Mike Gahn, who's a county commissioner. So you
Okay.
might get with him and see if you can speak to that council about that. That's at the county, though.
I've already gone
So-
to them.
Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Tom, do we have all the information? Okay, so we can visit about that and see how to proceed, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, was there any other general public comment? Nothing? Okay. Then we are on to the regular agenda. And again, the public is allowed to speak on any of the regular agenda items or give public comments after first being recognized by the mayor. Individuals are asked again to come to the microphone, sign in, state their name and address, and speakers should address again all comments and questions to the commission. Now, I think that we're going to have plenty of people that want to come forward this evening, so I'm probably going to limit some of the time that we have, but, I'll make sure that you're able to finish your comments. The item, go ahead and begin then. The first item, well, the only item on the agenda tonight is to conduct the public hearing regarding the 2017 budget and consider adopting on first reading ordinance number 9274, approving and appropriating the 2017 City of Lawrence operating and capital improvement budget. This is the required meeting, the required public hearing that state law requires that the City Commission hold, where citizens are allowed to come forward and talk to any of the items that are in the budget or in the CIP budget. The item that is, as we go through this, and I need some direction from the commission, my suggestion is that we are holding the public hearing tonight. When the public hearing is closed, the public hearing will be closed. And so as we have second reading, is it the intention of the commission, and we need to have this out for everybody, is it the intention of the commission to open the public hearing again for public comment, or it ends once the hearing's done tonight? I just want us to be clear about it. My intention is to give everybody the opportunity to speak that wants to speak, but when it's closed, it's closed. Okay? I mean, we've given everybody the time to come forward over the last several months, and it just seems to me that
last year we had the second reading on the regular agenda. I thought perhaps this year it would go onto the consent agenda next week, but it could come off.
it's actually going to be done in 2 weeks. It's going to be done the 16th.
Right.
I think is the date that second reading, and does that have to do with advertising or just the way that we picked to do it because we have our work session next week?
I believe it's both.
Okay, so we'll just plan on that. Here's the thing. I mean, it's about the public comment at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I just want everybody to understand, so then when it's closed tonight, the public hearing part is done.
So then if it's on the consent agenda on the 16th and a member of the public pulls it,
That's what I'm asking.
what's our reaction?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, just so that everybody will know. I mean, we're required by law to hold the public hearing, and something that we've always done is that if something came forward, that public comment would be allowed. But, at this point, we've heard a bundle of, comment on a lot of things, so.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful, though. I totally understand what you're saying and why you're saying it, but I think you have to be careful making a decision tonight that there will be no further public comment after tonight.
Okay?
It seems, I changed the rules of the consent agenda. If we say that we can't have any more public comment, it's on the consent agenda, somebody pulls it off, and we say, well, sorry, no more public comment. That's what I'm hearing. Is that
Okay.
correct?
I think we can agree that none of us will pull it from consent in 2 weeks, but I don't know that we can promise that no one out in the public's going to pull it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would be comfortable with saying the public can't pull something off the consent agenda and not comment on it.
Yeah.
Maybe Tony could help us.
Okay. Tony, you have a comment on?
Yes. As you stated at the beginning of the meeting, Mayor, we are required by law to have a public hearing, and that is scheduled for tonight. So if you wish to take comment on the 16th, if it is on the consent agenda or the regular agenda, you could still accept public comment, but it wouldn't, your public hearing requirements are tonight.
Tonight, from the comment side. correct?
Yes, people could talk about the ordinance if they wanted to on the 16th, but the public comment, the public hearing is tonight.
Okay. So then, if somebody wants to pull it off and talk about the ordinance, they can do that on the 16th, correct?
Yeah, that is our procedure, so
Okay.
I would say yes, they still have the ability to do that, but I think to effectuate change, they really need to be here for this hearing process and deal with it this evening.
Right, okay. Well, I just want to make sure that
They
everybody...
have the right to comment.
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands the rules and what those rules are. Okay, so we're all under the opinion that to be placed on the consent agenda after tonight. And if somebody wants to pull it off, they can speak to the ordinance as it's written, okay? Okay, just so that we have that. Okay, so we get ready to open the public hearing in a second. Staff have comments at this point, Tom?
Yeah, we have some brief comments, really kind of to transition from the July 19th meeting to this evening's meeting so that they'll be very brief, and we've done some PowerPoints so that everybody in the audience can kind of see them, to kind of point out where we were and where we are today with the differences that occurred in the meeting. So, go ahead. So the budget was really established based on the City Commission's 6 primary goals: public safety, mental health, infrastructure, non-motorized transportation and transit, affordable housing, and economic development. The guiding principles that kind of the format that we used to prepare the budget were provide a structurally balanced budget. And those commissioners that were here during the process know that that was balanced by the thinnest of margin. There was no room for error. Preserve our core city services, prioritize funding back to those city commission goals. Sure. Maintain a flat tax mill levy, and that mill levy was at 31.488 mills. And develop a 5-year capital improvements program for planning purposes. So now let's summarize exactly what happened at the 19th in terms of changes from the manager's recommended budget document to the document that allows for the maximum levy that the city commission can approve. And the things that changed it were, we reinstated the city auditor position, which added $124,600 or .069 mils. We reinstated the Director of Arts and Culture position, which added $105,697 or .117 mils. We increased the library appropriation to the requested amount from the library, which was $255,195, which is a mill increase of .282. We reinstated the full funding for the longevity pay program for our employees, which was $86,912, which equated to about .063 mils. And the net result of all of that is we increased the millage up to .531 mils. So you could go up to that amount over what was recommended from the manager's budget, but you can't go over that amount. And that was stipulated at the last meeting held on July 19th. The other major change, of course, this year was the CIP Capital Improvement Program, and it was significantly revamped from previous year's presentations. It expanded to include all capital projects costing at least $75,000 with a life expectancy of at least 5 years. And it was a 5-year program. And just for you to recall, there were $100 million, almost $100 million in projects that fell to the unfunded list. In terms of changes to the CIP, and I would point out that these changes do not impact the tax levy, because some of these occur in future years. But some of the significant ones were the animal shelter partnership. And if you look in 2018, we're projecting a expenditure of $7,500,000. The Humane Society will raise $5 million for that facility. And they will create an escrow for us, and we will draw down on the escrow to retire the bonds up until such time as 2021, at which time the remainder would be our responsibility, and that amount would be probably $250 per year or less. So that has no bearing ultimately on your 17 mill levy. The Bowersock family contacted us. I got to tour the dam and the facility. Way back, 100-plus years ago, we entered into an agreement and took responsibility for the maintenance and operation of the dam, not the operation, but the maintenance of the dam facility. We estimate that will cost $1 million. We pushed that out to 2018. I think it's a matter of leverage. Going back, I'm sure Chad has done some historical perspective on that at some point in his writing career. We added the community health facility roof, and that will cost us, it shows up as $500,000, but we will be reimbursed $250,000 from the county for that particular project. And then we moved around some of the transit shelter funding so that years 17, 20, and 21 were added $150,000 for more shelters, which you know we hear about constantly. We had removed the adequate security provisions of the budget from down $114,600. I think there's some misinformation out there in the public. That transition or that changeover does not occur during 17. It occurs at the first part of 18. So next spring, when we develop our budget and CIP, we can address that issue again. We can continue to use the methodologies that we're currently using in terms of placarding the building and precluding individuals. I would point out the municipal court facility has two security guards on duty at the court. And the reality is we're looking at maybe some changing locations. That facility is a leased facility, and we're looking at potentially, if we can move some facilities around, maybe we can get that into a building that already has security involved. We removed the Castle 23rd Street project. That was actually included in the CIP by accident, so that's just being reduced. We removed the downtown lighting. That's something that we will come back and take a look at again, so that shows a reduction in the CIP. And then we adjusted for the multimodal facility. There's an actual increase in there, about $2.6 million. The amount of the city's contribution will not change, but we expect to hear from the grant authority this year, and so we may, or this next year, so we may have to enter into a grant agreement, and so we move that back ahead for 17 out of 18. And we moved the first year of the fixed route bus purchase from 18 to 17 and adjusted the other out years accordingly. And we moved the 19th Street project from 17 to 18. And finally, we removed the tub grinder acquisition from the CIP for 17. Again, all of these things, if they fall to the unfunded list, they will be looked at again as a part of the next year's CIP, so you'll see them again next year. And again, none of these changes impact your tax levy. All the tax levy changes occurred on the previous page. Finally, the overall 17 budget, if adjustments to the recommended budget are sustained, would increase the mill levy by 0.53 mills, which is the increase from the current millage of 31.488 to 32.018. Dollar-wise, that's about a $480,286 increase from the manager's recommended budget. In terms of the action tonight, you're required to hold the public hearing. You would adopt the 2017 budget ordinance on its first reading and provide directions to staff on final adjustments for budget. The next steps are August 16th, the second reading of budget 2017 ordinance and its adoption would be considered, and we would approve the CIP at that time as well. On August 19th, the 2017 budget ordinance would be published, And August 25th, we have to submit, the deadline is the deadline to submit the budget to Douglas County. So at this time, I'd recommend that you go ahead and open the public hearing, listen to the public comments, bring it back to the table, decide what your adjustments will or won't be.
Okay. Any questions of Tom right now? Okay, with that, I then would, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing regarding the 2017 budget.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and second to open the public hearing was made by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Herbert. All in favor of that motion, aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. The public hearing is open. Can I just have a quick show of hands of how many people wish to speak tonight? Okay. Tell you what I'm willing to do. I'll give everybody 5 minutes each, okay? Don't have to use it all, but you're more than welcome to use it, okay? So with that, who would like to be first? Here we go. Yes, sir. Again, if we could have your name, so everybody at home knows who we are.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Matthew Burke, and I live at 835 Highland Drive. I'm here to speak to the recommended changes that we just heard about to the budget with specific regards to the cultural director position and to the increase in the Lawrence Public Library budget as requested by the library. Obviously, the entire budget's important. It affects people's lives. But I'm here to speak to what I know. It's now commonly understood that the arts are a vital component in the economic health of any community. From an arts and economic perspective study this year in St. Louis, Missouri, Robert Lynch, the president and CEO of the Americans for the Arts, said, "Our Arts and Economic Prosperity series demonstrates that the arts are an economic and employment powerhouse for both locally and across the nation." And as I recall, that was one of the points of the budget, was economic development. Lawrence understands that this economic reality of the arts, and it demonstrated it as with the creation of the cultural director position. I urge the city to follow through on its commitment to this position and in good faith support the cultural well-being of our city. As a professor of art up at the University of Kansas, I've taught hundreds of students over my time there in 10 years in sculpture and drawing. For some, the classes that they took fueled a successful career here in Lawrence. They stayed here. And that's not by accident. Lawrence is a place where students understand that we'll welcome them as artists and art makers. And it reflects, the character of Lawrence. It's significant that in a time when civic leaders bemoan brain drain from cities in America, leaving for the coast or for bigger populations, that these promising and educated students stay here for the reasons that I've stated. A city budget that supports the arts and cultural programs would help ensure that this trend can continue. Thank you.
Other public comment? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Hans Carter, 718 Indiana Street. I was born and raised in Lawrence. Lawrence has always been a special community. And I want to start off by applauding the efforts of Mr. Marcus and the City Commission for establishing a budgeting process that infuses greater fiscal discipline and transparency. As a business person, I understand the value of making sure that we have clear priorities and dedicate funds to those priorities. The point that I wanted to stress this evening is what we include in that list of priorities. Lawrence is recognized across the Midwest as a special community, and especially over the last quarter century, I think it has become widely recognized as a community that celebrates diversity, entertainment, arts, and the culture that supports the area. So as we're thinking about the priorities, I wanted to applaud the efforts with the most recent budget revision to include funding with the mill levy increase for the Director of Arts and Culture positions and the City Auditor. I think those two individuals can help ensure that we have a long-term vision for how the arts and culture should be a part of this community in an affordable way for the long term. The other thing I wanted to stress is support for the 9th Street corridor. It serves as a wonderful solution that furthers the arts and culture and connects the growing sort of cultural arts center of the Cider Gallery area in East Lawrence to the downtown. In its simplest form, a complete street solution with wider sidewalks, better access, better lighting would not only allow greater pedestrian traffic flow between those two parts of our community, but would also breathe life into East Lawrence for decades to come. So I would ask that you would consider that for the coming budget year or years, if the case may be, but whatever you do, please don't just let that die. Thank you.
Thanks, Hans. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Claudia Lea, and I'm a Lawrence resident, long-time Lawrence resident. I've been paying close attention to the commission, and I also am glad to see some of the things that people have voiced as being important to them restored in the budget, such as funding for the Arts and Culture Director, funding for the library. And I know that the city manager and the commission have difficult decisions to make. There's only a limited amount of money and so many different priorities. I'm here to speak about one of those priorities that I think hasn't gotten as much attention in this current budget, and that is the funding that was initially included to screen and keep concealed weapons out of the public library, City Hall, and some other buildings. I believe it is worth the effort and expense that it would take to keep the public library and City Hall from having concealed weapons. Earlier today, a group of volunteers presented the City Commission, so hopefully you received that petition that we gathered. I believe it was 687 signatures in support of that, and that was just in a single day with a group of volunteers asking for support of funding for the screening that would be necessary. I think the reason that many people stopped to sign the petition on that day is that safety is a priority for them. Especially in public spaces where people gather with many different viewpoints and purposes. When moms and dads gather in the library, they should feel just as safe listening to library story time as they do reading books to their kids in their own homes. When young people go to Teen Zone to play their favorite video games, they should know that the only battles that they have to worry about are the ones on the screen. When a retired person comes in to use their computer, she shouldn't have to be nervous about this person sitting next to her who seems kind of frustrated with their job search. Everybody should feel very safe in that public space that is our wonderful library. Similarly, when elected officials and neighbors gather here in City Hall, I think it is a special place in our community where we want people to voice controversial opinions, different viewpoints, and feel safe in doing so. So I would urge you then to restore the funding that was originally recommended, especially with regards to the library and City Hall. And I understand that with the municipal court, then there are some other considerations that was initially included, but there's a possible change in what building that court will be in. In particular, then I would advocate for the library and City Hall to have safety measures to keep from having concealed weapons inside their doors. So thank you so much for all your consideration.
Claudia, just I think the city manager summed it up pretty well. It wasn't, removing the money permanently. It's not that the requirement doesn't hit until 2018, and that we're going to take it up next year under the budget consideration.
I think a lot of people are under the understanding that it's going to take place at end of June, July of next year, and it's actually January 1st of 18, which allows us to address it. But I would say to you, I think the reality is we have 46-something buildings. No one of our buildings that occupies employees or members of the public is less or more important than the other. Some might think that some might be a more likely source of agitation that could lead to a conflict with armed weapons. However, the cost of providing two armed personnel and the equipment to do the screening it's substantial for each one of these institutions. I've talked to other managers here in the metropolitan area, and quite frankly, they don't know how they're going to fund it either. It is such a significant cost. But to get to your point, we can look at it again in the context of the whole next year as well.
Yeah. And I think we have some other people who are going to speak on this issue, but I would say that originally it was recommended, I believe, by the city attorney, so it seems like it was originally a priority, and it seems like there's, from our short time gathering signatures, that there's wide public support, in particular for the public library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Megan Jones, and I would like to say one thing about the time that this is supposed to be implemented. According to the Kansas Personal and Family Protection Act, which is KSA 75-7C20, Section I, it will be in effect on July 1st of 2017, and that date is clearly stated in the law, and so you can look up that text and find it. So it will be in effect on that date. And so waiting until next spring to appropriate funds for adequate security measures will be too late. There will already be guns according to the law starting of July 1st of 2017. I understand that the budgetary issues are great and that it's extremely cost prohibitive to include these. And myself and others are working at the state level to try to keep this from happening at all, so we can just keep the signs that we have. But the problem is that we don't have that right now. And I live in Lawrence. I like the library. I like to come here. I like to go other places and use the public facilities that are great in the city. And I don't want there to be guns there. It statistically actually does make people less safe. It doesn't just make them feel less safe. And I want to maintain a safe city. So that's all I have to say. Read my name.
You know, I thought we were, didn't we get an exemption that runs until like January of 2018?
It expires on July 1st of 2017, the exemption for public buildings.
Okay.
There is some question about that. When the law first came into effect, we did apply for an exemption very early on, and that extension was for 4 years and would expire December 31 of 2017. A new bill was introduced this year, she is correct, and there is a date in there that says that exemptions will expire on July 1 of 2017. However, there is some question as to whether that applies to exemptions that were already on file. And we have consulted with other city attorneys and with the League of Kansas Municipalities, and it is not as definitive as she states. We believe that we have the exemption that we applied for early on and that it extends to January 1 of 2018. Or December 31 of 2017.
Right. Okay.
I hope that's the case.
Okay. Thanks, Megan. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name's Gina Spade. I'm a resident in Lawrence. I would also like to echo the comments of the citizens ahead of me and urge the commission to take the actions necessary to keep guns out of our public buildings. While we might have some dispute about the date as to when this goes effect, I would urge the commission to be very sure that that date is going to be honored by the state and that the city is going to be able to keep the signs up on the public buildings as long as the city staff believes is allowed, and that's not going to change in the middle of next year. You know, as Claudia said ahead of me, we did gather the signatures of nearly 700 concerned citizens on this issue, so I think that the commission should take that into account when considering this issue. Personally, I would like to not spend our tax dollars on these security measures and instead fund the arts and economic development and police and housing and all these other things that make our city great. But unfortunately, the legislature has put us into this position that if we want to keep our public buildings safe, then we have to take these additional measures at this time. When the city manager had the information up there earlier about the budget, it indicated that public safety was one of the commission's priorities and in fact was at the top of the list. And we believe that keeping guns out of public buildings will contribute greatly to public safety because the statistical fact is the more guns are present, the more injuries occur. And I would disagree with the city manager that, you know, while there may be 46 public buildings in the city, that some are more important than others, that some do serve as gathering places for our community. And I personally do not want to have to take my kids into the library thinking that there might be someone with a weapon concealed next to us. If I see that weapon, then I will remove my family from the library. And I don't think I should have to do that. I think that our buildings should be safe for everyone. I know you guys have some tough choices in front of you tonight, and I appreciate your consideration of this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Anyone else?
Yeah, I can't resist. But I've heard, you know, people, bicycles and library and art and everything like that. And you know what? I'll tell you what, you need to stop and think how safe this city is. Lawrence, Kansas. It's probably one of the safest cities in the state. And why is that? Because we have one of the best police departments in Kansas. And so, you know, the police department, they've been at the bottom of the barrel for a long time now, you know, waiting for a new facility. And I think, personally, we need to get that new facility and get them a new home, whether it be out by Venture Park or whether it be out by Wakarusa. Whatever the deal is, and I know there's some money allocated for design on a police building, but we need to step this up. If you want to continue to have a safe Lawrence and where you can go out and bicycle or walk the streets at any time of day, then you need to keep this police department with a good facility and well equipped. So thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Other comment? Anyone else?
My name is Susan Tate. I'm the CEO of the Lawrence Arts Center, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you again in this public forum. I'm here this evening on behalf of Lawrence Arts Center staff, artists, teachers, our board of directors, over 8,000 students, and the many individual artists and groups who consider the Lawrence Arts Center their creative home and have done so for over 40 years. We actively raise money every day to ensure the vitality and value of our city's Arts Center, including writing the grants that helped us afford the City Director of Art and Culture, making a connection with Callahan Creek, writing grants that cause us to be able to afford a cultural plan for the city. We're more successful than ever in doing this and on raising money on our own behalf, and yet we value and we need and we leverage the financial support of the City of Lawrence, currently at less than 10% of our total budget. As I consider the budget you're about to pass for 2017, I see a budget in which you decide not to spend $500,000 in private arts funding from outside sources to pay artists here and around Lawrence, and simultaneously ask the Lawrence Arts Center to raise more private funding for the arts. I'm struck by this irony and believe that conflict alone justifies taking some time in considering the philosophy of private and public funding for the arts. The Lawrence Arts Center respectfully requests city funding for our facilities maintenance remain at the current levels for the 2017 city fiscal year. The proposed $55,000 cut represents a drastic change in the city's relationship to its art center. We believe that the citizens of Lawrence value the full access to its art center that city funding at current levels makes possible. The Lawrence Arts Center receives less than 10% of its operations funding from the city. A few points of clarification. Half of the Lawrence Arts Center was paid for privately, the other half paid for by the city. It is a city-owned asset we care for every day under the leadership of Steve Richardson as if it were our own building. In the last several years, we have raised over $300,000 in private funding to make it better, including funding from the Community Foundation. We're committed to this, but in fact, it's not our own building. The $230,000 number that keeps coming up is a city debt, not the Art Center's, and it is not operations funding for the Art Center. The city pays our utilities bill, and the city has traditionally given $30,000 to support our financial aid fund, which is about 25% of our fund needs, and the rest we gladly raise. We believe in it. The city has also provided $110,000 to the Art Center to support facilities maintenance. The proposal to cut this amount in half means we will make cuts in facilities maintenance and therefore cuts in public use. We hope the city will reconsider this $55,000 cut, as it is this small percentage of public funding that makes it possible for us to stay open 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, keep the building safe and well-maintained in spite of increasing numbers of guests, and allows us to welcome uses that are not driven by commerce. Financial support for facilities maintenance has direct impact on the safety of our building and on our ability to open for individuals and groups who cannot afford rent or tuition. The Art Center staff and board believe that by providing even less than 10% of our $3 million operating fund, this would be our utilities bill, $30,000 for financial aid, and $110,000 for facilities maintenance, even by that small percentage, you are keeping the promise of the building itself and supporting the social contract that is behind it. That is, that the arts are for everyone. And this means at odd hours for artists who need the space and for families who can't afford to pay and for working people. Based on the current proposal to reduce our funding, it seems to be the city's goal that we eliminate free uses by arts groups or other groups who cannot pay. But this is definitely not our vision or the driving vision behind the Lawrence Arts Center. We are not in favor of 100% private funding for the arts. Do we know how to do it? We do. We know what classes to sell, we know what tuition to charge, we know how much to rent the facility for. We know we can rent all day to Sunday and close to artists who couldn't otherwise afford to come. We don't believe that is the vision of the Lawrence Arts Center. I've shared with many individual artists and organizations who use our building free of charge that we can privatize our operations to the extent necessary should the city cut our funding by half for maintenance in 2017 and fully, as we've read in the paper, might happen for 2018. We can raise tuition costs, we can charge all groups, we can invite fewer people in, we can become entirely market-driven. However, it is our priority that the Lawrence Arts Center remain accessible to all, and we hope that, in fact, while you don't have to, in fact, we never limit ourselves to the things we have to do at the Lawrence Arts Center. The city will continue its commitment to this promise. Our staff, who clean and maintain 940 New Hampshire as if it were their own, as I said, led by Steve Richardson, They write grants to pay for improvements to the building. They market classes, art, and performances. They support children. They seek private funds for financial aid. They support, with money, time, and building, Art to Go, Final Fridays, the Busker Festival. They run the Free State Festival. They teach Head Start. Haskell's Children and Boys and Girls Club is incredible and generous and serious-minded and visionary, and deserves serious-minded and visionary consideration by the City of Lawrence. Partially or fully defunding the Lawrence Arts Center facilities maintenance, as the city is proposing in 2017 and then in 2018, is a definitive move toward deprioritizing public access to the arts, toward privatization and commerce-driven priorities, and it is a move we do not support. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Susan, I have one question. You talk about you had to raise half of the money privately for the building,
That's right.
and I wasn't a member of the commission at the time when we did that. It's hard to believe, but the question that I would have, did you have to put the money up front?
We put the money up front, but the City of Lawrence, or the private, the building is about $7 million. The city's half is 3.5, the private half is 3.5. We fronted the money, but we didn't totally finish our $3.5 million. We have $6,000 left, which we are paying the city in increments of $2,000 a year until we finish our part. The city took out a 20-year bond, and that's the $230,000 amount, which has been, for the first time in history, cited as something given to the Art Center, but it is not our operations funding. It has nothing to do with anything except the city finishing the payments on a building the city owns, as they promised to do 15 years ago.
Okay. Questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other public comment? Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak regarding the 2017 budget. In 2013, the Commission accepted the Community Health Plan, and I just wanted to say tonight that I really do appreciate the fact that the city priorities reflect some of those priorities that were articulated in that plan. The inclusion of mental health, particularly funding for a mental health unit and the RAP program. I know those were in the initial recommended budget. I think those are incredibly important and appreciate their inclusion. We all know how important affordable housing is. Poverty and jobs, was one of the key elements in that plan. So affordable housing is an important component of that, as is economic development opportunities such as those provided to the Peasley Center. So funding for the Peasley Center also, I think, incredibly important. I don't want to take any more time. In addition to that, certainly the arts is an incredibly important part of our community, so I certainly support the reestablishing funding for the Arts and Culture Director. Mostly, I really want to thank the city manager and staff for really a job well done, and for you all supporting the budget process that this year and the 3 years that I've been back in Lawrence, I think has been more transparent and easier to understand, and therefore easier for public participation. I know Stuart really ran on a platform of wanting to see a clear budget process for the city, and I think this year really is reflective of a significant change. So thank you to staff and thank you to the commission for supporting that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Any other public comment? Anyone else? Anyone else? Good evening.
Hi, my name is Umut Bayramoğlu. I live at 1039 New York. This is the third time I'm addressing the commission in 4 weeks. I appreciate your patience. And I would like to start on a positive note to thank everybody, the staff, the commissioners, for listening to the public, for those of us who spoke out, wrote letters, emails to you, and restoring some of the things that were so valuable to us. It's very much appreciated, and it feels good to be a part of a democratic process where we feel like our voices are heard. And I come back here, again, not to complain, but I want to speak from a point of privilege. I am originally from Istanbul, Turkey, but on a day-to-day basis in Lawrence, Kansas, I pass off as a middle-aged white lady. That comes with a lot of privilege. And I have a lot of friends in the intersectional communities of Lawrence, African Americans, Hispanics, lesbi, gay, trans friends. And the only last thing that I want to highlight for the Commission to consider one more time is the impact on their lives, on the future of what their experience will be like in Lawrence, Kansas. If we can make it any more comfortable for them as it is comfortable for me to exist as a middle-aged KU graduate white person living in Lawrence. And specifically speaking, I would like to remind one more time that citizens of Lawrence rejected the expansion of the Lawrence Police Headquarters. So any placeholder or any consideration, I think, should go back to the voters. I would also like to highlight one more time that any additional police officers, we should really look at what kind of de-escalation training we have for them. I agree that our police department already does a fantastic job, but again, that's my experience as a white privileged person. So I am here speaking on behalf of people who are either too afraid to speak up, who are afraid of consequences at their workplace, who have to work a lot more jobs, a lot more hours than I do with childcare responsibilities, and that can't attend these meetings. Every time I come and speak at these meetings, several people reach out to me. The first time I wrote about it on social media, it was shared by 400 people. I only had 200 friends. So when I come here and I use the pronoun I, and I speak as a single voice, I would like to consider that I speak for a lot of people who don't have the voice or the privilege to come out and speak here. But thank you again for all you've done. Appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Anyone else? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made and second to close the public hearing, made by Commissioner Larson, second by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor of closing the public hearing, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Okay.
Can we have back on the screen the changes that were made to the budget?
You have a question at this point. I wanted to have Tony give a brief
Oh, I'm sorry.
a brief
I didn't mean
report.
to
No, you're
interrupt.
fine, you're fine. Tony, could you give us a brief report about this library funding?
At your meeting on July 19th, you did ask for an opinion regarding Charter Ordinance Number 16, and I did provide a memo to the commission that was put on our website, but I'll just hit the highlights for tonight because I know you have a lot to discuss. Under Charter Ordinance Number 16, the City Commission is required to levy the tax for the library in a sum determined by the Library Board within the established cap set forth in Charter Ordinance Number 16. While the board has no authority to tax or levy a tax on its own, the legislature did, by statute, give library boards across the state the power to determine the mill levy for library maintenance within limits imposed by law. So this requirement is set forth in Charter Ordinance Number 16 as it is currently written, but as you know, this governing body does have the authority to amend that or change it by adoption of a new charter ordinance that could repeal the current one. I listed some options in the memo about what could be done. The commission could alter the charter ordinance so that the library board made a recommendation regarding the mill levy, but would reserve the final decision on the mill levy for this city commission. It could change the limitations or the caps set forth in the charter ordinance, or the commission would be within its authority to establish an entirely new system for the operation of the library, including making it a department of the city. If As I outlined in my memo, there are certain procedures that have to be followed for the adoption of a charter ordinance, and it does have a 60-day protest period, so we would have to keep that in mind. As far as the debt service on the library general obligation bonds, the 2017 estimated tax levy for the debt service on the general obligations bonds issued for the library project is, according to Brian Kidney, 1.355 mils, which equates to approximately $1,225,213. Going forward, that amount could be subtracted from the library's mill levy, although, that could be subject to challenge perhaps. Again, that could be clarified by a charter ordinance that the debt service for the general obligation bonds would be included in a cap. So it's just that. Be happy to ask or stand for any questions if you have any.
Point, is it staff's recommendation that we must follow the recommendation of the Board of Trustees of the library on their budget request?
According to this charter ordinance, that is your obligation.
Okay. But can we give clear direction about the mill levy, the mill rate as it pertains to bonded indebtedness in the future? Or that we're going to reserve that right to be able to discuss that? Because
yes,
that seems to be it's over and above, what is allowed through all the ordinance that we have.
Yes, I think that you could certainly make that reservation known tonight.
Okay. Is there some legal way we need to do that? Is there a discussion that we need to have with the Board of Trustees of the library? How does this need to happen? Because I think,
if I may.
Sure, please.
We're going to be doing a pivot from budget to strategic planning. This is something that we could talk about as part of our strategic planning. What's the vision for going forward with the library? Do we want it to become city department? What financial arrangements are we going to be making with it? I mean, I think that would be one of those things that we look at through that process. Tom?
Yeah, I think those bigger issues are, but I think, if I understand the mayor correctly, I think what he is suggesting is that you do not wish to have it portrayed or understood or perceived that you are giving away or creating a precedent this evening if you go ahead and approve the request that's being made. And the way that you would potentially state that is that the commission reserves their right to subtract that bonded indebtedness in future years.
If we don't do that, we're going to be faced, with expenditures that we may not be able to meet.
But we can modify the charter ordinance to take care of that.
When we can do that,
Yeah.
that. But I think that we need to have our ducks in a row and be able to do this, and so everybody understands it.
I think the attorney laid out some alternative actions that you could take, and I think those are appropriate for the strategic plan process. But at the same time, I would suggest that you reserve your rights to subtract the bonded indebtedness in future years, if that's what you're choosing, so that this can, and you put that on the record. Brad's here, library board members are here, others are here, they hear, and it becomes part of the record that you have reserved the right, not creating a precedent.
Yeah, because I think this has kind of taken on a life all its own, and I don't want, I just think that we need to have that out front, and so that we're able to talk about that in the future. I mean, that's 1.3 mils right there. And we're talking about limits under the charter ordinance as they exist. So I think that we need to be upfront about that and make sure that we reserve the right to be able to talk about that and be able to reduce that, if appropriate, in future years.
Under our current ordinance.
Under our current ordinance. Now,
Okay.
if there's a change,
Okay.
there's a change.
Right, yeah, but I mean, this is under our current ordinance.
Our
right.
current ordinance says that we're going to levy, 4.5 mils or whatever it is. But the truth is that now we have another 1.3 that's on top of it, as I read it. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know. But that equates to about 5.8 or whatever it is. So let's just be real careful and have it out there that in the future, we have the right to reserve that, okay? Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Tom. Okay. Any questions on that?
Just to make sure I understand. We cannot levy that or put that 1.3 mils on during this budget.
Oh,
See,
I
it
tried
has
to-
to be future.
I tried to figure that out, too.
Okay, because that's the hard part of it.
Yeah.
It has to be future. That's what I'm hearing.
I think we have the right, I think, to probably do that. But I don't think that we want to get into a challenge, as I think that that's where we would be heading. I think Tony's recommendation, Tom's recommendation is very solid in what they've done, in the opinion that was given. But, you know, if we're going to proceed this year, we have to retain the right to reserve, you know, that future payment coming from the mill levy. So, anyway, that's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. So, let's go back and talk a little bit about, is there the items that we added back into the budget 2 weeks ago, the auditor's position, the arts director, cultural arts director, the library, and longevity. Is there any change or discussion on any of those items as to where we're at?
I appreciate you adding it back in.
I appreciate you guys going along, everybody. I think it means a lot to a number of people. So that's kind of where we're at there. You know, another item that comes forward is, you know, Tom and I apologize for not having this discussion with you earlier, but, you know, our fund balance at 20% of our expenditure rate, we're at what, 22%? I think it is. If I added all that up, and I apologize to everybody if I've seen a lot of figures along with the rest of the commission and our staff over the last several months, but I understand the rationale of having, you know, cash on hand to make sure that our the funds that we have in place have a direct impact on our ability to borrow and our bond rating and obviously our interest rate, and that's like real money at that point. Is there any reason we have, let's face it, we have some agencies, you know, in town that have made pleas, you know, throughout this process, and we can't fund them entirely. But is it still is it still your recommendation to be at that fund balance, that percentage of fund balance?
Yes, and I think I'd add one more concern that you should all have, and that's the tax lid laws coming into effect next year, the start of 18. And by comparison, I think if you were to, if in fact it had been in effect January 1st of 17, you would have been capped at value of 1.6%. So when we talk about a flat mill levy, that doesn't mean we're not getting an increase in the amount of tax return to our community, because values have gone up, and in this particular year, they went up 3.8%. So you have built-in escalators into the two employment agreements, and then as a result of that, those things are already fixed. And I can tell you they're beyond 1.6. So unless we see some huge potential jump in the consumer price index going forward, I think you stand a great risk of really having maybe to use some fund balance next year. And so I'd be very cautious about using that. I'm fiscally cautious to begin with, but knowing that you have this tax lid law coming into effect, even though it doesn't apply to public safety and some other things, I'd be reluctant to tell you to use any more of it at this point, because I think you'll find out that you're going to end up having to use it next year just to balance the numbers. You have some fairly significant percentage adjustments that still that will occur both on the police and fire side, and you're going to feel I've seen it, I feel it with you. You're going to feel a responsibility to do something in terms of pay with your other employees at the same time. So while that isn't already set, that's likely, and that is all subject to tax lid. So I'd be very cautious about that.
And I think one of the reasons that I don't want to, go into our fund balances at all is because of future needs that we're going to have. And I think we all recognize that as being real, but, it's kind of like tonight, to hear the comments of the CEO of the Arts Center, and realize the number of people served. And when we talk about $55,000, it's in a $200 million budget. I understand. So I don't know. Man. Okay. Well.
Mike, to that point, one of the things I think we have to be very cautious of as we look long-term is we need to make sure that the public services that we offer are in fact just that, services. And we've had discussions about, well, if the library's short on money, maybe we have them charge for the recording studio, or, and I think we need to be very cautious about the direction we go when we start talking about restricting citizens' access to these public services, because ultimately we all paid to build these buildings, and now to make them to where everything's run as a privatized industry is going to exclude a lot of the people who paid to build it in the first place. I understand that the budget's very tight and we're trying to scrape pennies out of the bottom of barrels here, but we're talking about facilities that we own, that are city assets. And we're projecting over a 2-year period completely defunding the maintenance end of buildings that we own. That doesn't seem to be a very smart strategy.
No.
Because what that's going to lead to is it's going to lead to privatization of those assets, which in turn leads to the restriction of their ability to serve a community.
And a lot of the young people that,
Well, not just young people. I mean,
know,
you just drop by there on a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock at night, it's open, they've got classes upstairs.
I understand.
Those aren't young people.
But I see those
Yeah.
kids and just like you. But anyway, okay. Well. Oh, well, okay. Other questions or comments?
I guess I'd like to say, Mark, we have gotten a lot of emails. We've gotten a lot of comments. We've listened to you and we've heard you. We hope that you see the effect that your comments and your input has had on our budget. And a lot of that is in the changes that we've made to the city manager's recommended budget. City manager's recommended budget was excellent. It was what we asked the staff to bring forward. And people took a look at it. There was a lot of participation in our budget process this year. And that's a wonderful thing. It is democracy. The sad thing is that many people are disappointed. There are so many needs that we try to fill with the resources that are available to us as a city. And what I appreciate is that we've come to compromise. I mean, this is a compromised budget. Sometimes compromise is seen as a bad thing, but I see it as coming together as a community to fund what we need to do and what our vision to do for the next year is. The things that this budget provides are structural balance for the operating funds, increased transparency, and capital projects in context. These are all tremendously important for our community to be successful. And I'd like to thank staff for your work. It's been great. And I'd like to thank the public for your comments. Again, I'm sorry I didn't get back to all the emails, but, we've read them all, we've heard you. And I'd like to thank my fellow commissioners. This is a good budget.
Okay. Anyone else?
First of all, thanks staff, because I think the budget, as was presented by Tom and staff, was excellent. And as Stuart said, it was right in line with what we were asking for. The compromises that have been requested, I think they're good compromises. My preference would be not to raise the mill levy, but I'm more than happy to compromise on that. One thing I do not want to do, and I don't think I can compromise on, is using any sort of reserves to fund it. I think the reserves are too important, as Tom pointed out, for the future. We've got some tough years ahead of us. We need to prepare for that now. This is just the beginning of it. So it's important that we maintain that reserve at all possible cost. But I think the compromise we've come up with, I'm very pleased with.
I didn't really have anything prepared to say. We hammered out a budget. We took in a lot of citizen input and adjusted the budget accordingly. I mean, that's what we're here to do. I'm happy with what we've done. I appreciate staff and all that they've done. I wanted to point out, I guess, that we had 62 requests from outside agencies for funding, which was a little under $8 million. We funded about $7 million of that. 38 of the 62 requests were not fully funded. So no one should feel singled out. There's a long list of people that didn't get everything that they were hoping for. And I would love to fund all of them if we can. You got the Douglas County Dental Clinic, Boys and Girls Club, Van Gogh, Big Brothers Big Sisters. Those are all wonderful organizations that I would love to fund fully. And Burt Nash was one of them as well that we didn't fully fund. So yeah, it was a huge compromise, and I am satisfied with the results. I guess I can't really say happy with the results, but I'm satisfied with what we've done. We have a timeline to achieve it, and this is what we have on this state, and I'm ready to go forward with it.
Matthew? Anything else? Nothing?
I think we've got our priorities. I philosophically, just a little bit of difference of opinion on some of the reserve issues. It's very difficult for me to ask taxpayers to pay a lot of money so that we can set it over here and not use it.
Yeah.
That's a hard, Mike, you asked me at the beginning of the meeting, how big is your reserve fund? It's not 22%. Ultimately, I guess the most frustrating thing for me, as you sit here and you listen to a lot of the public comment, it seems like a lot of our difficulties we're facing are not of our own creation, but dealing with decisions coming down from the state. How are we going to keep concealed weapons from 46 of our buildings? Well, that's not really an issue that we created for ourselves, did we? Right? How are we going to deal with maintaining a credit rating as our state gets downgraded twice? There's a lot of outside impact that's negatively affecting our community, and that's very unfortunate.
It's a reason to have reserves.
Yeah. Well, Matt, I want to bring up something that I think that you said about a year ago. You wanted to make sure that the room was full through the budget process, I think it was. Matthew, we've done it. And we've done it multiple meetings, and that we've had a number of people that have come forward and, expressed opinion one way or another on the budget and the process that's been involved. I feel very fortunate to be a Lawrence resident and watching the process unfold before us. I think it's something that is, as hard as it is for everybody to go through, we have, I think that we've done a budget for 2017 that's going to take care of as many needs as that we possibly could. And when we really got down to it, on the size of the budget, there was only about 4 or 5 different items that we really had a whole lot of disagreement with from the recommended budget. I think that we asked a lot of our staff, and our staff showed up and made some solid recommendations, and level of funding and level of, the level of funding that's going to be provided is our responsibility, and that's kind of where we're at. And I think that it's a plan that can move ahead and be able to take care of a lot of needs, but one of the things that we got to remember, it can't take care of everything. So we've got a lot of responsibility here. Matt, I do appreciate your comment about a lot of the things that have come forward are not of our doing. And I think that we need to make sure that we work hard, and there's another process out there to help take care of. So anyway.
Happy Election Day, right?
Happy Election Day. I hope everybody got out and voted. Okay. Anything else? Well, it's been a privilege to work with all of you. Tom, you and your staff, it's been a privilege to go through your first budget. Thank you all very much for all of your hard work. And to the members of the public, thank you for being a part of this process.
I guess I do have a question. The language that Tony was recommending, is that something that needs to be added to the ordinance, or you were just thinking needed to be part of the public record?
I just needed it to be on part of the record at this point, and I think that we were able to do that. Okay? Is that fine? I mean, I need to make sure that, as long as everybody understands, okay? Okay. The item before us then is to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9274, approving and appropriating the 2017 City of Lawrence operating and capital improvement budget.
So moved. Did we close the hearing?
Did I close the public hearing? I did? I thought I did. Okay.
Good. To make sure we did.
You got me.
It's been a long process.
I try to do the vice mayor duty.
That's right.
We do things.
I start questioning myself. Okay, we have a motion. It better had not died for lack of a second.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and second to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9274, approving and appropriating the 2017 City of Lawrence operating and capital improvement budget. It was made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Boley. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you all very much.
I'm going to need a checklist.
Next item is City Commission items. Just so that I know, again, it's probably covered under future items on the city manager's report. It is going to be on the 16th, the second reading.
That's correct.
Just so everybody knows.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
it'll be on the consent agenda and only pulled if asked to be pulled, and we'll accept comment then. Okay? Okay. Any other commission items? Okay. City manager's report.
Yes, I'll start with an article from Dallas, Texas. And we have our own kind of food desert discussion going on here in town. Old West Lawrence, East Lawrence, North Lawrence. A number of people have been working together to talk about the possibility of trying to find a grocery in the area. I came across this article, I just thought it was kind of interesting. Having spent 22 years in Detroit, there's vast areas of the Wayne County, Detroit metropolitan area that are technically known as food deserts. And so this is kind of a unique process that we're going through. I actually think that it should be very doable for us to land a grocery that is in closer proximity to the people down in the areas I described, so that we can have them have food more accessible to them. The next article was, or the next report was on the city services regarding move-in and move-out. This is kind of the crazy time for Lawrence and most university towns with all the move-ins and move-outs, and it's further complicated, I suspect, by some of the new projects that we have going on, which have been somewhat challenging. We had upwards of 500 service requests are processed to start and stop transferred service utilities. Dave Wagner emailed me today and told me that, we've been doing some reorganization inside regarding utilities and finance staff, and that's worked out really well, and it's kind of facilitated probably more than the normal in terms of those connections being made. did something kind of unique this year. We did a tweet along with our solid waste crews. I think the crews enjoyed that, and I think we had a lot of interaction back and forth, so that was kind of fun. And we created a centralized landing page on the website for the bulk of the information available for move-out services, which should really facilitate mainly the students coming in and out and their adaptation to technology to get their information. This should help in terms of the process for them to be able to find out what they need to know about move-in and move-out. And for Daniel Dannenberg's benefit, I did read his email, and I will take a look at, what we do in terms of who we charge for all of these services. I thought he made some pretty significant points. It's a burden for the entire community, and maybe it should be more specifically assigned to some of the persons or the complexes that generate this type of material on us. The next item was from Bob Nugent, our transit administrator, and he talks about 12 new concrete pads for our transit stops that were installed and or in the process of being installed, with benches and other amenities that we'll provide at those locations. And we have a number of changes to Lawrence bus service going into effect August 1st. The new transit hall, Lawrence Public Library, several locations across the U.S. campus, our KU campus, and on all buses, they'll have new schedules and some information in that regard. And I think we've added, let's see, 1, 2, 3 more routes that go from every hour service to every half-hour service, which was one of the objectives of the city. And we're currently working on, I visited the transit garage, and we're currently working on the refurbishment of 5 used buses. In terms of future agenda items, we have budget and CIP, as we indicated, for adopted by the City Commission in the second reading on August 16th. And this is a question for Leslie. What does FCIP stand for?
It's the sustainability CIP,
Okay.
where we take money that we pay for sustainability improvements, and then we pay that back over time.
You passed the test.
Thanks.
And that'll be on August 16th as well. Leslie asked that question during our weekly
Make
kind
sure
of
I'm awake.
review. In terms of work session items, we have a pretty full agenda. On the 9th, Castle Drive reconstruction alternatives from Billings to 6th Street. And then we'll have Wakarusa reconstruction from Legends to 6th Street will also be on. On 9/13, there's a Parks and Rec master plan update as well. We also sent you some additional information. Chad was busy writing stories about the sports pavilion, and so I want to publicly acknowledge that it was me that made the decision to allow the use of the court that apparently had been restricted in the past for public use, and I authorized the use of that particular space in terms of a major tournament. We had almost 300 teams in town. It attracted a fair amount of ire from certain individuals in the community, and I want you to know that was my decision, my call, and so if there's any blame or any angst, it should be directed towards me, because I'm the one that was responsible for making that decision. Having said that, going back and doing a little research, we find that we do not have a formal policy. We have probably what I would refer to as kind of a practice policy, where we've taken certain actions which have been interpreted as policy regarding that issue. And policy to me means something in writing and adopted by resolution. So long story short, my recommendation would be for us to come up with a recommendation actually two recommendations. One would be a recommendation from the staff telling me and ultimately you what they actually think the right course of action in terms of a policy would be. And the other would be a summation of what they think the policy in terms of practice currently is, so that you can see that. In having the discussion in our meeting among staff and with the mayor and mayor pro tem, I think I offered some comments that maybe had not been contemplated or considered in previous discussions of the policy that we believe to be in effect. So, and the other thing I want to say is when this project was developed, I understand that there was a lot of consternation about this. I understand that there was some divisiveness in this community over this project. And I'm here to tell you that I wasn't a part of any of that. I didn't see any of that. I'm trying to figure out how to make that place work. I don't necessarily think imposing fees is necessarily the road to ruin or privatization. But I would suggest to you that you're going to head that way unless you think about other methods for attracting some revenue. One of the things I'll tell you about the facility is it's a hit, okay? And I know that that doesn't change the process issues that some have with how it got developed. I get that. It's a huge attractor to our community. And it gets really heavy use. So much heavy use, in fact, that I think you have to think about some sort of additional funding sources, other streams of revenue to help support that. It's not just the typical neighborhood community center. I mean, anything that size would not, in my book, classify as just another one of the neighborhood centers. And so I think you really want to think about, when they did the operations plan for this, it was contemplated that there were going to be endorsements, and it was contemplated that there was going to be this tournament fee revenue. And I understand that there was some comments and, pledges that we would keep this one court available. But what I would tell you is, I don't think it's really achieving the purpose that the council that made that commitment, or commission that made that commitment, wanted to achieve. So I think we need to have that discussion. So with your permission and direction, I'll come back with 2 policy statements. I think it's important that you have this discussion and then you ensconce this thing in writing. And the other thing I would say is, until that decision is addressed, the direction to the parks staff is one court is to remain open during tournaments or whatever for public use, as at least in practice, I think it's been attempted to be. So, sorry for the consternation that was caused by my decision. I guess you're never too old to make a mistake once in a while.
As we talked yesterday, I think it's a good idea that, the commission, along with our staff, clear up whatever thinking, one way or another. Because, Tom, you got to have the ability to be able to work with your staff and kind of know where we're thinking. Fortunately, everything has to be in writing, so make sure that we stay on top of it and we do it the right way, okay? That way, I guess and nobody else gets in trouble, right?
Thank you.
You bet.
Can you remind us what the bond payment is on that building?
Pardon?
Can you remind us what the bond payment is on that building?
Bond payments, of course, for the...
Approximately 1.5 million this year.
And how many years, do you know?
It was a 20-year bond, I believe, that was issued in 14.
Tom and Leslie and I, along with the staff yesterday, had a good discussion about one of the things is that we need to take into consideration. Tom brought it up a minute ago. The equipment that is in the facility right now, this thing's getting a lot of use. And, a lot of miles on a lot of that equipment, and that's high dollar equipment. And so, that's something that we're going to have to think of too. People are very much attracted to that building, and I know what my voting record was on it, but, at the same time, I'd hate to have to go out and ask those 60,000 people that go there every month, vote for me. No, it is a very popular place, so, anyway. And we're fortunate, you got to say this, we're fortunate that people look at Lawrence, Kansas to be able to come here, have their tournaments and things, and do what they do. So, anyway, that being said, that's where we're at. Okay. Tom, you have our direction to bring back the 2 policy, whatever, and let's get it on the agenda, get it discussed, okay? Okay.
Just want to verify all of our future meetings are 5:45.
Yes, ma'am, unless we tell you different.
I'm going to ask that every week.
One thing that I do want to have a discussion at this point as we go to the count. Was there any other questions of Tom? I'm sorry. Okay, the calendar. We are off the 23rd and 30th, correct? We are not going to have a meeting those dates.
We'll have counseling services available for your withdrawal.
Yeah, well, you're probably going to be painting the house or something. I can feel it coming. Okay, well, just so everybody knows. Okay, were there any other calendar items?
I have an informal calendar item. We're getting ready to start the school year, so I'm trying to kind of dust off some of the cobwebs, and I figure you guys will be my first practice here. This is an informal calendar item that I need all 4 of you to do at some point between now and August 9th. I need you to drive north down Castle between the hours of 5 and 5:30 p.m.
Or I got a better one, Saturday morning.
Or Saturday morning.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to talk next week at the work session about what the future of Castle holds, and the neat thing is, we have a trial right in front of us. We have narrowed half a block of Castle so that work can be done on Bob Billings Parkway. And we have an alternative before us that might talk about narrowing an additional 7 blocks. Just drive north down Castle at about 5:15 in the evening.
Been there, done that.
And then multiply that by 7 more blocks. And then bring that with you to the work session.
You want us to honk and wave when we do by your house?
Yeah, please.
The funny story about that is I was trying to get to a location just south of Bob Billings and Kessel. The thing that happened was I could see the building I needed to get to, but I couldn't get there.
Just park and get out.
Okay, that's it.
The left green arrow, Chuck, there's Chuck, for 15th and Castle, Bob Billings and Parkway and Castle is, it's not going to green, it's just flashing yellow, and then no one can turn left onto Bob Billings Parkway going west.
Check it. They were out this morning, I saw them.
Yeah, I was stuck in that light. One person just went before the cars went when it first turned yellow, I should say. It's a little dangerous situation.
Okay.
So you need permission to run it?
No, it flashes yellow. I just don't want to run it when there's a car crossing.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Okay. Any other
Thank you for
calendar
reminding
items
me
then?
about that.
Guys, thank you all very much for your hard work, and to all the employees of City Hall. We appreciate everything that we have to enjoy in Lawrence, Kansas. It's a special place. Anything else? Chad, you got to stay for another couple hours. Glad to see you again. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn, made by Vice Mayor Soden, second by Commissioner Larson. All in favor of that motion, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.